This PieceA Lisa is being brought to you by Mutual Security Credit Union. Find out more at mscu.com. Wait until you hear this. I saw this morning in this little article on the Wall Street Journal lower right-hand corner front page. Inside Capital, investor access yields rich tips. I'm thinking, what? What are they really trying to say here? Here's what they're trying to say. This is going to chill you. I'm telling you, we've been talking about congressional insider trading. We're talking about the revolving door of corruption and the lobbyists. Wait until you hear this one. Wait until you hear this one. They start out with the paragraph that says, when Senate Democrats finally brokered a compromise over the proposed health care law. This follows specifically the health care law. A group of hedge funds were let in on the deal, learning details hours before a public announcement was made. Senator Lieberman, Joseph Lieberman of Connecticut, is quoted as saying, a spokesman for him is quoted in the article as saying that he doesn't tell anybody anything that he wouldn't tell anybody else. In other words, he doesn't give preference to hedge fund people over other people. But it's not about what he says. A lot of times it's about when he says it. Do you understand the difference? Do you understand how important it is to have information before other people? That's what insider information is. Knock, knock. Hello. Insider information is ultimately information that everybody else on Wall Street has. It's just that you had it sooner, so you could make a bet on it. And that's exactly what's being bought and paid for in Congress right now. This is such a disgusting story. This should raise the hairs on your head. You know, if you're involved politically at all, and you get a chance to ask your congressman or a would-be congressman, someone who's an opponent, about anything, this is what you should be asking them about. Because seeking advance word of government decisions is part of a, quote, growing, lucrative, and legal practice in Washington. Did you hear that? It's growing, lucrative, and legal. It employs a network of brokers, lobbyists, and political insiders who arrange private meetings between hedge funds and officials, including lawmakers and their aides. Do you understand what's happening here? We talk a lot about Peter, the politician, and Larry, the lobbyist, and Wally Wall Street. It couldn't be clearer. And Harry, the hedge fund guy, who's really, in Greenwich, but he might as well be Wally, the Wall Street. Harry, the hedge fund guy, who basically is always looking for an edge. He's basically looking for that scrap of information so he can make a bet, and he can win a bet. And you know what kind of information he wants? He wants to know if a bill is being passed, but not only if it's going to be passed. He wants to know in the hours before how particular congressmen are thinking about one or two line provisions that affect specific companies that they have an interest in. They don't even go big picture anymore. They go little picture. The details, so much of life is in the details, and so much of life is about the details. And I promise you, I won't get stuck too far down deep. But I want you to understand. I want you to understand how critical the details are, because they have everything to do with what is really, really wrong in Washington, D.C. now, and how people are manipulating and taking advantage of the system. I want you to hear this, because it's so. It's beyond upsetting. It's to the point now where it's making my skin crawl. So what happens is that there's a firm, and it makes money. It's called J&K Securities. And believe it or not, it's a New York-based brokerage firm. And it's considered one of the most aggressive of dozens of companies that escort clients around Capitol Hill. So what happens is hedge fund Harry calls up J&K Securities and says, could you get me a meeting with Senator Lieberman's aide? Because I know Senator Lieberman is going to have to vote on this particular health care bill, and I'm thinking of making a play for Aetna. And I'd like to know if Aetna is going to be benefiting or not by what Senator Lieberman is thinking about doing on Capitol Hill. So J&K Securities arranged this particular healthcare briefing that I was just talking about, and more than 200 similar sessions over the last 3 years. And they name names in the Wall Street Journal article, so why shouldn't I? Hedge fund managers at Viking Global Investors and Karsh Capital Management were among investors who met privately that afternoon. You know where they met? In a nondescript Capitol basement. They met in the basement of our U.S. Capitol with senators whose support was crucial to passage of this health care bill. And what they were asking about. Do you remember the public option? You remember the thing that President Obama wanted? He wanted very much, and so did Dennis Kucinich and a lot of the liberals in Congress, when they were doing the big health care plan. They wanted something that would erect competition between our private health insurers. And the thing that they thought would do it best would be to have a public option. In other words, socialize medicine to an extent, and force the marketplace to have to choose between paying the government for health care or paying private insurance companies for health care. A lot of people thought this was the only way that there would ever be any incentive to bring down prices. And the people in the hedge fund industry wanted to know if this public health option was going to fly. And so they met privately in the Capitol basement. This is some article, the Wall Street Journal. Kudos to you for writing this. And so they met privately in the Capitol basement with the lawmakers that were going to vote on the public health option. And they found out in that basement, hours before the vote, that there was not going to be any public health option. That the senators who were in charge weren't going to vote for it. Now, the deal was announced after markets closed. But Viking and Karsh, these hedge funds, placed bullish bets on health insurance stocks, including Aetna, during the fourth quarter of 2009, which they sold in the first quarter of 2010. Short-term, quickie. They placed a bet in December, sold in January. Shares of Aetna rose more than 6% within days of this announcement. As soon as they had decided that they weren't going to do the public health option, certain healthcare companies went berserk. You know why? They didn't have any competition from the government. I want you to understand the big picture. Here's a quote. Hedge funds and other investors have found that Washington can be a goldmine of market-moving information, easily gathered by those who are politically connected. Do you understand what's going on here? Do you understand how perverted and perverse this is? The insider trading scandals of Wall Street are nothing. They're penny ante junk bond status compared to this. The hedge fund guys are now insisting on meeting directly with senators. You want to know something? Senator Tom Harkin refused to meet with them. Yes, he did. He refused. When he found out what was going on, that these were pay-for-play meetings, he's the only one that's noted here who absolutely said he would not meet with them. But everybody else did. Tom Harkin is a Democrat from Iowa. He refused to attend because somebody sent him an email showing that they were charging this J&K Securities to attend a possible meeting with the senator. Now what happens is the hedge funds don't pay money directly to J&K Securities. What happens is they use J&K Securities to execute their trades. So they keep it cleaner than the obvious. They're not paying for meetings. What they're doing is they're calling J&K Securities and they're saying, basically, here's the quid pro quo. If I learn anything in a meeting you set up for me in Washington, D.C., I'll execute my trade through you. I will pay you brokerage commissions to do the trades that are a result of the information that I learned by meeting with the senators on the Hill and the congressmen on the Hill. And according to this article, it's perfectly legal. It's perfectly legal. What's different is that there used to be a go-between called a lobbyist who would report to the clients, and now the clients themselves are insisting on meeting with the senators. You understand the difference? So they used to hire lobbying firms. They still do. And then the lobbying firms would report back to the hedge funds and say, this is what we found out. This is what we think will happen. This is what we were trying to convince them would happen. Here are your odds for success or failure. And here's how we're trying to push our agenda. That's bad enough. But take it to the next step. Bypass the lobbyists entirely and have the clients meet with the senators and the clients meet with the congressmen hours before a vote. I was so disappointed in Senator Lieberman to hear his explanation for this. His explanation, he who is always at the head of these hearings and is against congressional insider trading. His representative is reported here. Here's the lame defense. It says, I want you to hear this. I'm trying to find it because I have all the defenses of Carolyn Maloney. She's another New York State person. She met with them. All these people met with them. Republicans in general defend the meetings by saying they seek the views of hedge fund managers to help shape laws that spur investment. And the Democrats say the conversations lead to better public policy because the investors tell them about loopholes or unseen consequences of existing laws. I'm not saying that some lobbying doesn't serve some good public purpose, but not this. This is not what this is about. This is trying to find out insider information so they can make a bet. And you can't tell me that politicians who are so savvy about getting reelected and are so cynical themselves don't understand exactly what's going on here. They understand exactly what's going on. On January 28, 2010, a group met on Capitol Hill with Senator Christopher Dodd, the now retired Connecticut Democrat who chaired the Senate's Banking Committee. At the time, investors assumed that Mr. Dodd would support legislation from Dick Durbin to cap fees that Visa and MasterCard collect on debit card purchases. Remember this? Remember this big hullabaloo about all the money that Visa and MasterCard collect whenever you use your ATM card? And they wanted to cap it? Mr. Dodd signaled to the hedge funds that he would not, in fact, cap these fees. He told them that. And when he told them that, Canadas Capital Management, which was there, added more than 300,000 shares of Visa to its holdings, a 50% hike in its holdings. And those prices rose from $81 at the end of January to $96 in April. And you're telling me that it's not about following the money? It's all about following the money. It's all about it. It's disgraceful. It's disgusting. It's gross. It's all about following the money. I've got to tell this to you, and you have to be alarmed, and you have to understand this. Harry the hedge fund, Wally the Wall Street guy, Larry the lobbyist, and Peter the politician. You got to understand these characters because the rest is BS. Do you not understand? The rest is crap. All this stuff with these pontificating politicians getting up there on their podiums, pontificating politicians on podiums. I'm doing a lot of alliteration today. They get up on their podiums and they talk about things that are nonsense. They wave their wands and they talk about making unemployment disappear. What are you talking about, making unemployment disappear? How about not giving the hedge fund guys an edge so that they can make billions of dollars on a trade that they shouldn't have had to have, that they had no right to have foreknowledge of? What are we talking about here? The inside club, the revolving door. How are we supposed to have any faith in our institutions, in our congressmen, in anyone, if they're as corrupt as this appears to be? And this appears to be tremendous corruption. This is painting a picture in this Wall Street Journal article, which I will tweet for you. You can follow me at Lisa Wexler, and I will tweet this for you. You should read this for yourself to see this revolving door and to see how they justify this and to see how they talk themselves into thinking that they're doing something okay. And you know what? They're not. And they're not fooling anybody anymore. You've just been listening to a PieceA Lisa. If you'd like to listen to the whole 2-hour show, please go to lisawexler.com where all shows are archived. And do follow me on Twitter at Lisa Wexler. Thanks for listening.